is derived from the leaves of the coca plant. When cocaine enters the body, it has a strong effect on body functions by acting as an it on the brain. Large overdose of cocaine causes convulsions, then death. Cocaine causes unusual and often unpredictable feelings and actions. In his ignorance, Marty took that dare, little knowing the eventual horror that lay in the deadly white powder.
Marty, have you seen the painting shears I bought last week? Can't seem to find them anywhere. Marty, you don't see right. I'm worried about you. There's something wrong. I'm going to take you down to Dr. Peters this afternoon for a checkup.
No, I'm all right.
As his body gradually built up intolerance, he needed more and more of the drug.
Okay, it helps if I unmute. Hello, welcome to the show. This is Bridge Sky, and you are listening to Kiss Recovery 101. Okay, I'm just going to put it out there. I'm nervous. I'm flying solo tonight. There's no awesome guest or co-host with me. So in that same sentence and thought, please bear with me. All right. I did send a couple private messages to some of my best friends, and I said, please participate. I feel anxious. And honestly, when I feel icky about a subject, it's important that I talk about it. And so I'm rereading this wonderful book that I've gone through a couple times, but it's been a while. Actually, I'm looking at the date on this last chapter here, January 11, 2021. So yikes, over 2 years. That I've actually read through it. So if this is your first time listening, it's a live show for a reason. I would love for you to interact, comments, questions, and it's about an hour. And luckily, in that sense, I am by myself, so there should be no reason I don't keep it within the hour. Heck, who knows, I might cut it early because I'm going to be doing the memes at the end by myself. That won't probably be as much fun, but okay, so tonight, if you had a chance to read the post, we're going to talk about guilt. Now, where I sit today, I have 3 years, and I got, 3 years in December, and things are popping up that I still have instant guilt over. And I'm happy to say I've recently gone back. I'm back in therapy with a therapist, and we're going over some heavy stuff. And I need it. And my son, my oldest son, actually, is doing some trauma work with his new therapist. And I got to tell you, I always say I'm an open book, and I've always kept that door open to my children. You know, I've always done the living amends. I wrote some letters. You know, I did a couple of amends for me, but definitely he's been asking questions, and it's bringing up a lot of that memories. And I realized that I don't know if that guilt part will ever go away, but I need to process it. And so I really want to open this conversation up to anyone where you sit today, especially whether you're new in recovery, especially if you have a lot of years, where do you sit on that guilt? How do you process that? And, I always say I don't have regrets, because if I didn't go through what I went through, I wouldn't be the person I am today. However, I sat in the therapist's office with my son and his therapist, and saying that, just like I said it, I don't have regrets. I immediately felt guilty for saying that, but I elaborated and said, I am who I am today because of those, but I do also want you to know that there was a lot of things I put you through that was not okay. And I want you to know, I'm proud of myself for saying this, because then I was welling up with emotion as I am right now. I said, I want you to know that I am open and my story is out there and I share every chance I get. So you are not going to embarrass me. You don't have to worry about me getting in trouble anymore, I could say. I want you to have that open discussion, and please talk about it with whomever. And I'm honored if you want to include me, but by all means, talk about those things. And anyway, okay. So this first part, I'm going to go into the book. I like reading. I like reading other people's knowledge and wisdom, and it really helps me reflect on my own, where I'm at today. I do have a clip that I found when I first did a first podcast, which also brought me back to where I sit. It reminded me of, what even got me to start this podcast and how much I've grown, because back then it was 18 months. And then I definitely, so read through this, a little bit through this chapter. I have this clip. I'm obviously not going to do the hot seat, because usually the hot seat is 3 hot, heavy questions. So again, listeners, you got any questions for me, go ahead and put those out there. Otherwise, what I would like to do is, on the solo reflection thing, is one of the things that really has stood out to me, a message that I heard so long ago and still resonates. I'm going to take that time to reshare that, because you can't keep what you have unless you give it away, which I remember first walking in, I'm like, what? That doesn't make sense. You can't keep what you have unless you give it away. Nobody explained that to me, but I was never the person to stick around for the meetings after the meetings. So anyway, I get that today, and I'll explain that later for what that means to me. Now, maybe that means something else to you. I don't know. Oh, Facebook user. So the nice thing is, if you join the Facebook group, it's a private group for a reason, because then you have the option to either you pop up like this person did now, they just show up anonymously as a Facebook user, and I don't have, say hi, and you can, keep your anonymity. And then YouTube, I just love YouTube. Again, I say Recovery Out Loud, that's my jam. So that's just an open public platform, and luckily it keeps all this stuff recorded. And that is key to why one of the big reasons I started this podcast was so when my children are ready, something could happen and I might not be around. And there's a lot of things they don't know about me, especially in this world of recovery that I'm just so grateful for and love. They don't know this side of me, in depth. And so if something happened to me, they could listen to these shows and maybe think, wow, my mom was pretty cool. Okay, anyway, getting cheesy. So Facebook user said, congratulations on 3 years. Thank you. Guilt does come, but I did want to say guilt is okay, but not to mistake it with shame. Oh, yes. Oh, yes. Absolutely. Right away, that makes me think of Brené Brown. I mean, she lays it out, the difference between guilt and shame, because I didn't even know there was a difference back in the day. Guilt is healthy. Guilt is it's a healthy emotion. Unless you don't process it. For me, then it turned into shame. So guilt is, I made a mistake. I make mistakes. I'm, human being. Shame is, I am a mistake. And I lived in shame over 17 years of my life. with substance use. So I definitely am thankful that I know the difference. And again, though, when guilt crops up, it hurts, but I don't sit in it. And here we are. That's why I'm having this conversation. What up, Bridge? Hi, Facebook user. I cannot see who you are, but what up? Another Facebook user said, we can work through guilt and understand why we have guilt in recovery. Working through our journey. Shame is what kills. Yes. Ooh, I love that you said that. Working through that guilt. Absolutely. There was no way that I could have worked through any kind of shame or guilt without my recovery community. And the 12 steps for me was definitely a huge foundation piece. It's not the only recovery path. I needed multiple, but I'm so happy because no matter what, the fellowship I found in the 12 steps saved me. I found those key people that I connected with on a level that I had never found before. You know, I was the only person in recovery or with a substance use disorder in my quote unquote family and friends and circle. So before, ironically now though, none of those people really are in my life anymore, and all my friends and quote unquote family are in recovery. So I really do get to live in that freedom. Okay. Tiffany. Hi, Tiffany. Hello, she says to the group. So yes, please interact with each other. I'm going to just keep an eye in the comments, but I want to get into this amazing book, and rumor has it she's working on book number 2. So I'm like, whoo, I got to reread through this one, share that, and be ready for her next book. So Rosemary O'Connor. Now it's called A Sober Mom's Guide to Recovery. Again, as I say this over and over and over, I don't think it could just applies to moms. I believe dads, just parents, we have this, whole other level of life that you don't get or understand until you have children in your life. And I mean, you could be a step parent or a godparent or adopting parent, foster parent, whatever. But until you have that kind of responsibility, I never understood things, the level of life that I've reached. Okay, Facebook user said, amen. I'm glad you're talking about this because oftentimes in recovery, we forget to revisit the issue of guilt and get it mixed up with other emotions that may become triggers. Oh, hey, Bahana! Yay! Another Facebook user says, love you. I love you too, whoever you are. I'm just probably one of my people that I bugged. Absolutely. And that's what's striking to me is, I'm a mentor, I'm a certified peer recovery specialist, a sponsor, and I guide people. And so when I feel this heavy guilt, it's like all that shame and those moments of where I really failed as a mom hit me hard and I question everything. So, okay, let me get into it. So if you have it, get the book. I literally just looked at it, Amazon, used copy. I loved used copies. It's like $8, so I recommend it. But so chapter 2, let me see. Chapter 1 was awesome. Okay, so what's funny about this book too is I remember, shout out to Amber. She's one of the founding members of Bad Moms with me here. Suggested we read. This was the first book outside of the big book and the 12 that we read in the Bad Moms group, and Rosemary O'Connor. And chapter 1, hitting bottom. Wow. That was dated December 20th, 2020. So one thing I like to do when I read books is every time I go through a chapter or a page or whatever, I date it. And so it looks like 2020. So the first time I read chapter 1, it's called Hitting Bottom. Recovery's not so bad. It's kind of like walking backward through molasses up to your crotch with your legs tied together. And Wilson, shave. Okay, so what's great about this book is the cover looks light and fluffy. It's a mom who's got a daughter on her piggyback and a child on her back. It looks, well, for me, I'm like, oh, yeah, this is going to be cheesy and suck. Heck no. Like I said, chapter 1, you just heard that. It's blunt, it's honest, it's real, and I connected literally. And every single chapter, right after they're all short for the most part. And what's beautiful about it, after every chapter, especially some of those really heavy chapters, there's tools. Things you can do to process. Each chapter is so beautiful. Okay, this author is just brilliant. Okay, so chapter 2, guilt. Guilt, the gift that keeps on giving. Irma Bombeck is the quote. It says, guilt is the constant companion of the alcoholic or addict, maybe even more so for a woman. Every mother feels guilty about her parenting from time to time, which I like to say is those bad mom moments. You know, our group is called the Bad Moms Club. However, it's not bad that we need that because the bad mom moments in the past are in the past, but they still happen regularly, or just beating myself up. Anyway, it says, that's doubly true for women who have created drama, and caused distress for their children by drinking or using, possibly inflicting psychological damage. Ooh! And my son was just diagnosed with PTSD, which doesn't surprise me. And it's actually so awesome. I didn't get diagnosed with actually PTSD until, 2 years ago? Just before about 2 years ago. So I'm 41 now. Okay, so I'm not going to read, but she actually goes into this story that I really connected with. There was a line, and I've underlined and highlighted so many things, but there was a line that said, things quickly spiraled down, and once again, I became a woman who disgusted me the morning after. I felt the soul-wrenching shame only an addicted mother can feel. Before recovery, this was the picture of what I had become, a drunk, scared, and horrible mom. A mom who knew only one way to deal with these feelings, to drink again. That's one of many of my cringe stories, and if you're like me, you probably have some of your own. After we get sober and begin swapping stories with other recovery women, or for the fellows out there, you're men, for the first time, we will feel as if we aren't carrying the burden alone. Ooh, I put a heart by that. Because other women have done the same things we have. Hearing another person's story and identifying with them was the first time I felt any relief from guilt. I thought the feeling of guilt would end once I stopped drinking. But from time to time, friends or family brought up an incident from my past, or brought up an incident from our past, and out of nowhere, the shame and guilt would rise up in me automatically. Woo! Okay, let me hit that. So that happened with my son. I said the words that I said, and immediately, like, I've been tuned with my emotions, especially physically how my body reacts. And literally in the pit of my stomach, I said, "Oh, I'm an open book, honey. I want you to never hold back. Don't worry about, you're not going to embarrass me. You're not going to get me in trouble. I want you to share whatever you need to share, and absolutely ask me any questions. We can talk about it." And funny enough, his therapist, that was my previous therapist when I did DBT, shout out to Katie, she was like, "Well, if you're open to it, we could sign an ROI, release of information, and I could look up all the records." And I'm like thinking, of course I said yes, but immediately I'm like sweating. I'm like, oh gosh, I don't even know. I was such a different person then. That was back when I was still in treatment. So, okay, anyway, I can't imagine what's going to happen, but luckily I checked in with my therapist right after, and I let her know that, yes, I said I'm okay with it, but honestly, I feel scared and sad. So, sorry, rambling. Let me look at the comments. Okay. Oh, good. You guys are interacting. I really feel alone and sad right now, so I'm distracting myself. Okay. Facebook user said, "I'm super grateful. I don't have to stay stuck in my shame anymore. In fact, my sponsor had told me that if God has forgiven me, but I can't forgive myself, then I'm playing God." Oh, yeah. It was pretty convincing for me to hear that. The remedy? ? The best way to build self-esteem is through esteemable actions. Ooh. So keep doing what you are doing. By the way, this is Jason. Shout out, Jason. Actually, I just listened to you on the 12 Faces of Sober podcast. I listened to that. Jason, you just have so many levels. Like, I think I've heard your story, and then I hear it again now with Kenneth, and it's like you hit on some stuff. Like, I'm going to bring that. We'll have to have you back on. Okay, anyway, sorry. Another one says, I agree with Mr. Dean. When I forgave myself for not forgiving myself, oh, I know that's Mahana, so much can be lifted. Oftentimes, we need to remind ourselves about that we are forgiving. Oh, Mahana, I love that. Every time you say that, I got to repeat it. So, to forgive yourself for not forgiving yourself, and that was crucial. I would not forgive myself. And then once I finally feel like I did forgive myself, and I just started to do all the things, and I surrendered, I would still beat myself up. Like, how did I not just surrender a long time ago? So that's my first alarm, which is easy because I'm just definitely interacting. Okay, so that was just I have 3 alarms that go off to remind me to keep the show rolling. Let's see. I read a book called Sober Dad. It was important to me to learn how to be a good dad. So, of course, I picked up that book, LOL. Having my conscious contact with God was and is a miracle that I have been blessed with. I have been blessed to see the world differently through my recovery in so many ways. I've never felt like 100% human, since 8 or 9, until my real recovery. I'm adjusting to who I really am now. Well, and the key is it's always changing for me. I listened to that podcast, and I am definitely in a different space where I sit today, even just a year and a half ago. I remember saying, I've changed my story now. So when I share my story of experience, strength, and hope, I always would say, well, there's this dark spot in my body that I see. And if I don't feel it on a regular basis, with relationships, with things that bring me joy, well, I mean, that's what I used to do, was fill that dark void with substances. Now, though, I heard this great, totally different take on it. Actually, the minimalists on their podcast were talking about it's not a dark void. You know, you're setting yourself up to fail when you say that, because, you know, they're talking generally. I wish they were talking to me. Because you wouldn't go out. They were talking about how they went out to Montana and just looking at the beautiful landscape and the mountains, and they wouldn't say to each other, oh man, look at this beautiful void. So what they said to change it, and now how I actually changed it in my own thinking, is the key. How I look at it is, it's not this dark spot. It's not this dark void in my body that I need to fill. It's empty space. And I love that. And so when I have empty space that I want filled, you know, it sounds positive to me. Like, ooh, what do I want to fill it with? You know what I mean? Where before it was like this dark void of nothingness and I'm so empty, where now it's positive. Anyway, rambling. Okay. Still waters run deep, Bridge. LOL. Yes, indeed. Okay, let me just finish reading this passage. We're going to get to the clip, and then definitely the memes. Those will just never go away. Seriously, I love those. That's at the end, probably the last 10 minutes. I found some. Okay, I'll be honest, you could tell what kind of week I had. So what I do is through the week, screenshot whatever ones that stood out to me. And typically, you know, I need laughs, and joy at night for me is finding really great memes, and then I get to share them with you live. However, when I was uploading today, I found that not too many laughs, not too many lulls, lots of like deeper aha ones. So you could kind of tell. I actually was able to tell that my week's been a bit heavy. Okay, so continue reading. Again, Sober Mom's Guide to Recovery, Rosemary O'Connor says, so continuing with guilt, page 7. The first time, she's talking about, there was an incident brought up from her past out of nowhere, and that shame and guilt would rise up automatically. So let's see. She said, "Thank goodness for my higher power and for the 7th step of the AA program, in which we are to ask for the defects, which I changed to defenses, we uncovered in our 4th step to be removed. And thank the higher power for the promises that follow the 9th step, which is," oh, here we go, this is my favorite part, "we will not regret the past, nor wish to shut the door on it." So as the big book of AA says in chapter 6, the 12 steps AA are found, you can, in the back of this book as well. If we continue to beat ourselves up about our past and wallow in self-pity, we will not be present for our children or those people that we love in our life. And worst of all, we pass down our shame to our children. Now that stood out to me, Key, because I did definitely, I realized I was living in the past, and that's why I was beating myself up and shaming myself. I'm easy to blame and shame myself. However, when I surrendered, I'm like, I'm done, I'm moving forward, you know, especially when I got all my amends processed, and I was like, I'm not going to live in the past. But I can't shut the door on that, right? Especially for my children. I need to leave the windows and the doors and everything open. But it's still hard because I come off as, you know, for my children, I like to be, I'm a single parent for the most part. You know, their dads are involved, but definitely not on a full-time basis. So I feel like I always need to be strong, and I put up this front. And even when when I was having this conversation, okay, and then I processed, and then I have a letter that I wrote, you know, because it wasn't enough for me to have a living amends. I needed to write a letter. And you're never supposed to give letters that you write. I mean, you could do the burn it letters. There's all kinds of, you know, it's important to write it down. But you can have the letters that you give to that person. But the key rule, Wally P, shout out back to basics, says, but only with consent, right? And so we had our little talk, whatever. I waited a little bit, and I said, honey, you know, I do want you to know that I never forgot about things and blah, blah, blah. I have this letter that I wrote. I actually don't even really remember what's in it. I kind of do generally. I didn't tell him this, but like my sponsor at the time had read it. I had her read it because I couldn't read it. I was just too full of a mess and emotion, and she started crying, so I knew it was good. I know it's good. But he said no, and part of me felt a little relief, like, okay, I don't know if I'm ready to process whatever it is was in that. But part of me felt like, whoa, he's not. I'm getting ahead of myself. He's not ready for like open, like let's get into all the bad stuff. But I guarantee there's a lot of things he remembers that I don't remember. I guarantee there's a lot of things. You know, the brain plays tricks on you, especially in trauma moments. And there's a lot of things I remember a certain way that might not actually be fact, and vice versa. Like there's key things my kiddos have said to me, and it's a key memory in their brain. However, like with my daughter, I'm like, honey, actually, yes, you are remembering that did happen. However, it was not the person that you thought it was. It's actually the neighbor who was over. So, yeah. So it's gonna be edgy. Okay. So, continuing on. Oh, Facebook user said, we keep becoming a better us. Yes. Though the gift of recovery. It's our natural progression of whom we're becoming. Oh, yes. Lindsay! Okay, that's Lindsay P, what up? Hi, I love you. She's definitely one of my BFFs. Yay. And actually, Lindsay, I'm going to just throw it out there, one of the founding members also of Bad Moms. So we've still been running. We're going on 3 years now, I believe. So, okay, let me just finish reading. And then I want to talk about one of the tools that I really loved. Actually, I'm just going to jump right into the tools. So, Sober Mom tools for overcoming guilt. So number 1 is to make a list of all the things that you do well as a mom or a parent. Be kind to yourself. She has a quote from Roseanne Barr that said, if the kids are still alive at 5 p.m. and the house hasn't burned down, I've done a good job. And it says, ask the supportive people in your life why they think you're a good mom. You might be surprised how many good qualities your own children can list. Okay, number 2, this one I circled. It says, stop beating yourself up, exclamation point. Many women have a PhD in negative self-talk. Our inner critic yammers at us all day, every day. Mine is very creative in finding ways to beat me up. I'm not enough and never will be. Every other mother is this. Pick one, kinder, more accomplished, more loving, you name it. But here's an exercise I do with my clients. I bring them to a mirror. I have them look themselves in the eye and say the following. Ooh, this makes me emotional. I remember doing this. And back then, I couldn't even look. I couldn't stand to look at myself. Okay, so look yourself in the eye and say these things. Or you can come up with your own. I love you. I like you. I forgive you. Ooh, I underlined I forgive you. I think I had to say that a lot to really believe it. I love you. I like you. I forgive you. Because I didn't believe it at first. Ooh, that's the hot seat alarm. Okay. Which is a cue to roll in and get this clip. Okay. It says, just about every time they break down in tears, as they, at least in that moment, find release from their guilt. Try writing the phrases above on your bathroom mirror. If you find your guilt tripping or shoulding all over yourself, shoulding. Yeah, should do this, shouldn't do that. Don't should all over yourself. I should have done this. I shouldn't have done that. So repeat the phrases as a mantra to chase those negative thoughts away. I love you. I like you. I forgive you. Oh, that's so beautiful. Okay. So there's two more. And again, I'm not going to go through everything, but definitely get this book. And so I guess on a final thought for me with guilt is it has to be processed. And I definitely, with my sponsor, one of my sponsors, he brought me through grief recovery. There's a great handbook on that. And one thing that stood out was, especially with the guilt in recovery, to change that guilt word to grief. And it helped me process a lot and allowed me to grieve, because that's what substance use was for me. I didn't want to grieve. I didn't want to feel anything. And I didn't let myself grieve. And so that's what I've been trying. That's actually what I've been doing a lot this week, is trying to find, again, remind myself that, I was a different person then. My brain was so on a different groove then that my go-to was definitely nowhere near looking out for me. But how I was able to kind of, remind myself of that forgiveness was I did always show up as best as I could in those moments as their mom, because that was my most important job, I thought. And even though I kept making mistakes, it was that endless cycle, right? I drink because I feel guilty. I feel guilty because I drink over and over and over. And I broke that cycle. But it took many things. And one of the biggest things was finding connections with people in recovery that totally understood, and I didn't feel judged. It was so beautiful. Okay, clip time, guys. Now, as you can see, I've been trying some new things. I got a little background there. That's fun. Now, if I did it right, instead of trying to do my broke-ass version of playing a clip with a speaker up to the microphone, I think I've uploaded a little clip. So if this works, it will be awesome. If not, it's gonna be okay. Okay. Oh, let's see. Oh, did it work? Yeesh, I see at the bottom. Yes, gift of desperation. Here we go. So this clip, I'm gonna try to play it.
Sometimes it's a reality check.
Ooh, it's the low volume. Let me turn it up.
Understand that when people come into your life, sometimes if your life is a book, and when you go into recovery, it becomes an open book.
Yes.
And but these people that come in are not always meant to stay. They might just be meant to be a chapter or two in
teach
your
you a
life
lesson.
story.
Yeah.
And so that's okay. You're done with that chapter. You're moving on to the next one.
You gain that experience, you gain that knowledge, you gain that strength,
Yep.
and you can be, I'm a better person for the stuff I've survived, and I'm thankful for it. Now, back when, losing everything, I was like, this sucks. How can people say desperation is great? Like, why are
The
people
gift
saying,
of desperation.
Yeah, what is gift? My
You
ass.
understand it now, though, right?
But now
Yeah. Oh, yeah,
that I
it's
got on my
definitely
knees and I was my most desperate, that rock bottom thing,
Yeah.
there's trapdoors to those rock bottoms, and I probably hit multiple. I know I did.
It's just when you stop digging, right?
Yeah, that's your bottom. When you
Right.
stop digging, like my past does not define who I am, but I can't forget it
Right.
Right,
at all.
right,
Like my past doesn't define who I am either.
right. Okay, so that clip was from, shout out on YouTube, you can find Attitude for Gratitude. That's every Friday night, 2218 Minneapolis, I don't know, Timothy J. And the other voices you heard were Sarah W. and Holly H. We went on there, and I really loved what we discussed in that little clip, because I remember hearing the gift of desperation reading in the meetings, and I remember thinking, again, there were so many things that conflicted with me, but I was a very conflicted person, okay, and a lot of pain and a lot of suffering. So it took a long time for me to, I thought I was listening, but it took years for me to really hear what I needed to hear. And what I say is like the message, So, but what changed, so how Bad Moms started, I'm just going to go ahead and share the story. I don't think a lot of people know the actual story. I've heard other stories, and I think it just got mixed up, but it doesn't matter. Well, the point is, we were reading a story. It's called Empty on the Inside. So this is a moment when I remember I was really actually, the big book, the first 164 pages is like a textbook. The rest of it is basically stories. And if someone would have explained that to me, again, I never stuck around, so it was my own fault. But if I used to look at this big book and think this is too much. But if I would have looked at it like that, but one of the stories is Empty on the Inside, and it was about a mom, and everything in her story I felt was me in so many ways. And it was a Saturday 10-10 meeting, and a very big meeting, open meeting, however, very dominated by, at that time, just on that day, men. But there's a lot of women that go to that one, still to this day, I believe. And I remember we were reading the story, and there was a moment, because in that story it says, I am a bad mom. I knew I was a bad mom. And so there might have been only 3 or 4 of us at that meeting at that time, in that moms, in that women moms. I think there was other women, but they didn't speak up as moms. But it's a great meeting because they read through the stories, and at any point you can stop and say, hey, this is how this touched me, or this part, this one I connected with, or I don't connect with this, or why do they, you just have a discussion. And it was so beautiful because there was 2 that had shared before me. I remember, I think I shared something, but what stood out was one of my friends, Deanna, who's not here today. She's passed on, but she said, I am a bad mom. I know that. And, like, I don't have my kids, and at that time I had lost my kids too, and she just shared some stuff, and I was so, like, moved, and I don't know, it was like this moment, and unfortunately some guy who, I don't know who he was, I haven't seen him since, but like cut us off, because it seemed like all the moms wanted to start sharing, and was like, okay, well, let's keep reading, let's go on to the next story. And I was like, oh, finally I feel like I want to share, participate, and we're cut off. So I actually was very upset because I wanted to pull her aside, but I did actually get to talk to her after. at a bowling thing. But I immediately after that meeting, I was so fired up. I feel like there was something like some energy coming through me, and I went right over to the leader, the facilitator, and I said, all right, how do I start a meeting? Like, how does that work here? How do I start a meeting? And she's like, oh, you just got to show up on the board meeting Mondays or whatever and propose what kind of meeting. And I was so nervous as this was definitely back out of my comfort zone, but I was so moved by this moment. And so literally that Monday I showed up. I had my sponsor Marcy come with. I had one of my really great friends, Amber, come with, and I presented. I'm like, I want to start this mom's meeting, and I have it on Mondays because them Mondays might be easier to remember, and they approved it, and it was so great because I got to see Deanna at some bowling thing, and she didn't even know because she ended up coming to a meeting or two, but we were waiting for our turn to bowl, and I go, you're the reason this meeting got started. She's like, what? What do you mean? I'm like, the Bad Moms. Like, what you said, like, not only was the story impactful, but what you shared, like, it moved me. And, you're not a bad mom. I feel like the minute we walk into the rooms means you're not bad, okay? It meant that we were trying and we were making efforts because we were good. And so anyway, but empty on the inside, like that also was a key thing that I remember hearing. I shared it, a YouTube, you can hear Beth H., who wrote Empty on the Inside, share her experience, strength, and hope. And I love her. I love the story, like I said. But at the end of this speaking engagement that she had, I remember I was actually at 2218 doing service work. Again, still just fresh into the surrender and recovery and service. And I was sitting at the front desk and I was listening to it. And I was sitting at another person, anyway, that's irrelevant, next to me. And we're listening to it. And at the end, she was talking about how I wish desperation on everyone. And I was like, ooh, that's morbid. Why would she say that? Why would this clip end with that? And it was actually really beautiful. So that's what I call a seed. So that, for whatever reason, planted itself in my brain, and I had to keep processing it, and I had to keep talking about it and really marinating on it. And lo and behold, I realized, yes, it wasn't until that most desperate moment that I finally gave up in a good way. I surrendered, I let go, and I just decided I'm going to do all the things. And one thing I've never shared that I just want to share, just put it out there now, is even when they came and took my kids away, that wasn't the moment I surrendered. In fact, I'm confessing something. It was a couple, maybe even 3 weeks, where I was really on a really bad case of the fuckets. At any moment, I was so vulnerable, in a vulnerable state. It was minute to minute sometimes. And I had lost the kids, and instantly they had always been in my life full time, and they were ripped away from me, because I feel like, especially in recovery, that is, people try to help people with substance use disorders. The worst thing you could do is take and shut people out that you love, and take that connection. That was the only connection I felt that I had away. So I remember I distracted myself, and I had court-ordered meetings I had to go to, and I was still working full-time, and I had treatment. But literally, I could not be alone with myself in my head. And so I remember, they talk about this spiritual awakening. And for me, it was not just this one big aha moment. It was several spiritual experiences that for whatever reason, at that right moment, I was where I needed to be, and they touched me so deeply. And so I'm thankful that, I came into a group, and they didn't even know me. It was the last meeting of the night. I had to go to get my court card signed off, court card. There's a feelings meeting, actually. It was funny. I was like, oh, I really don't want to go to a meeting called feelings, but it was the last one of the night. But it was one of those spiritual experiences, and it wasn't much. It was probably, I think it was that night that I found myself surrendering, but I had shared, oh, that's right. Yes, this is my true sobriety date. So my sobriety date is December 20th of 2019. And I remember I went in and, I still had my mask up, and I was crying, but I said it was because I was feeling happy. And I said I had realized earlier in that day at work that, I got some gift cards from people at work for Christmas, but now I was able to take and use these gift cards. It was enough to just buy each of my 5 children one gift, because I knew it was going to kill me. It still hurts that would be the first Christmas that we wouldn't be together. And I think what was more painful for me was I knew that they wouldn't have me either. We were just like ripped away. And I said, I said, these are tears of joy though, because I'm just so happy I got these stupid gift cards. I was lying. Putting up that front. But, that's what's amazing about just those connections in that room. And like I said, that was the first time I had been there. I didn't know anybody. It was probably 15 or so people. But I needed to share that I was like, if I could have spoke openly, I would have said, I'm dying inside, knowing they're going to open presents and they're going to think about me, and I'm definitely going to be thinking about them. But they must have felt it. And after the meeting, it still touches me today. And this is silly. Like, this is probably silly to a lot of people, but, and again, there's unwritten rules, and this is probably against the rules, which is probably why I liked it more. I like rule breakers. But the basket that they had passed around, well, the one leader brought it over to me. And I'm like, oh, hey, what's this? And he's like, oh, no, this is for you. We want you to be able to get your kids, whatever, for gifts. And I was like, wait, what? What? You don't even know me. Like, why? I don't get it. And as I'm talking to him, more people came back in the room and added more money. It still makes me emotional. And I was so touched. Like, I literally, it wasn't much money, to be honest. That wasn't the point. The point was these complete strangers just showed this compassion, this love for me, and they didn't even know me. And something in that moment, like, sparked, like, made my light come back on or something. And I remember for 4 days, literally, I just kept having this flash of that same light. And I literally remember going to the Dollar Tree, and my brain started doing that. I think I was on break or about to get off work, and my brain was going to, we should make a stop at the store after this. And I just remember it was a key moment because I was grabbing the door handle to the Dollar Tree, and just that group, that feeling that group gave me on that night in one of my darkest moments flooded me again. And I was like, nope, not gonna do it. Like, they gave me hope. So I guess that's how I would describe it. And I just, again, in this room sharing openly, so I guess I've never really put it out there like that, but that's all it was, and this experience. But that night I went home and I got on my knees and I said, universe, spirit guide, I'm going to do all the things. And I'll be honest, in the back of my mind, I really didn't think it would work. Like, I did everything at that point that my sponsor, that the meetings, that the workshops, anybody told me to do, like, I would do it. And angrily a lot of times. But that's because in the back of my mind, I'm like, this is not going to work. You want me to be honest? I'll be honest. I remember walking into several meetings, again, court ordered, and I'd say, I have a desire to have your desire. I know that's the only requirement. I have a true desire to have your desire, but I don't have that desire. And again, angry Bridge was like, somebody's going to kick me out, somebody's going to say something rude, I'm going to leave, and nobody ever did. And so, yeah, that's when I really started to let my walls down. And to be honest, I let that I started to unlock that prison within my mind too. Like I realized, okay, I'm going to just fully be honest. And I had never really been able to be fully honest openly. And that was the beginning of me realizing how much I was living in denial in my own brain. Okay, sorry. Lots of rambling. Oh, good. It is 8:49, which means we have 10 minutes, which means it is meme time. Oh, I'm right on the dot, so that's beautiful. I think I beat the alarm. So I'm going to go ahead and I will pull up the memes. So luckily, if you have a smartphone of any kind, you will be able to see what I see. And we're just going to roll through these memes. Unfortunately, I won't be able to see your comments. So feel free to comment during so. So I'll zip through them really fast so then it's not awkward. Sharing. Now, I don't quite remember which ones I picked off the top of my head, but we're just going to give it a go. We'll see how this goes. Okay. Hopefully it doesn't mess up the background here. All right. So it is live Facebook meme time. Live with you, listeners. And again, give me your feedback because I'll check the comments right away after. Give me your takes on these. I'm obviously going to only have my side to share as to why I picked them or whatever. But here's meme number 1. Oh, shoot. I forgot I was going to share this. This is not a meme. This is a sad picture of Bridge before I found recovery. What's interesting is I wanted to share this. I say it all the time. People, I've been in recovery. I started trying recovery over 20 years ago. And for 17 years, I was in and out. And the last 3 years, especially the first year or two, people who I knew at Blaine Allenville, let me tell you, did not recognize me. Literally, Keith Cabell, shout out. I seen him, I think it was a year or two ago, at there was a silent auction thing. He was in the room, he was bidding on something, and I was like, oh, hey. And he looked at me weird, and he was like, hi. I was like, oh, shit, he doesn't know who I am. I was like, at first offended, but it was funny because we went back out. I think it was a pig roast or some kind of awesome charity event, friendly. And he came up to me after we went back outside, like, I don't know, 20 minutes later. He's like, I did not recognize you, Bridge. How are you doing? So that, when I talk about that, this picture highlights that. So I'm the one, with the red hair, black shirt, definitely not selling. That was me. So when I say it wasn't that, like, my physical appearance changed, well, my hair color changes a lot, but it's been my energy, my aura, my light, my presence. And sadly, Tabitha sitting next to me, beautiful smile, beautiful girl, she passed also. That's another heartbreaker. This recovery world is I've found this beautiful family and I lose members all the time. But I would try to go. I think that was like a UFC watching it on TV thing, and I really didn't know many people like then, but I tried and they tried, but as you can see, sadly, I look at that girl and I'm just happy. I just want to give her a hug. Like, I've finally forgiven her and actually love her, which is crazy to me because I never thought I'd say I love myself, but I love her too because she got me to where I am today. But yeah, that was me. Ooh, I should have prepared for that. I forgot about that. Ooh, gosh. Okay, let's get to the memes. Oh my goodness. SpongeBob. See, this now instant feel joy and happiness. SpongeBob looking like he's breathing out some air. He's out of breath. And he's holding onto the wall to calm down. It says, I spiritualed. That's not even a word, but it's funny. Spiritualist sounded different in my head. I spiritualed so hard, I pulled a effing chakra. Okay, I just love that because I'm all into the chakras and meditation and stuff and spirituality. And for me, spirituality has nothing to do with religion. And for me, the higher power, the creator, it's all different. Like, God is love. God is just, I used to say guide of direction, or there's good orderly direction, or I don't like group of drunks, but whatever. You know, God is whatever you make it and what it means to you. And I just know that for me, I believe in the universe, and I believe we all have spirit guides, and I check in with the source every night. Sometimes spot checks during the day too, and I try in the morning, but that's chaos. Making everybody breakfast, trying to get them on the bus. Anyway, beam number 2, Kathy Bates. What's his name? Steve Carell. She's just looking at him. Steve Carell. He's looking off, but she's directly looking at Steve Carell, just looking perturbed, I would say. And it says, "The way my spirit guides look at me after I let things slide instead of setting a boundary." 100%. And that's great. And I'm so grateful to shout out, we're reading the Book of Boundaries. And, I thought that I've really understood boundaries very well. However, this amazing book, Melissa Urban, is like, she's just fantastic at clarifying. And now I understand there's different levels of boundaries, which I didn't even think of before, and yellow and green and red. And anyway, okay. Oh, here we go. So, walls, it's a green door. It's got some leaves around. There's a heart on the door. It's beautiful. And it says, "Walls keep everybody out. Boundaries teach people where the door is." I might have shared this one before. Mark Groves. I love this one because that's true. I remember learning about what boundaries were at Al-Anon, and then my therapist, DBT, helped me practice and start incorporating boundaries. And I realized that if I have to learn a boundary with you, it's because I love you and want to keep you in my life. I used to think boundaries were mean, and that's like consequences and ultimatums, and like that's all I had all my life. So when I understood what they really were, and now reading this book, I understand that boundaries is like, for me, a show of love and respect. And it's a great way to figure out who you want to keep in your life and who does not love and respect you, to the capacity that they can at that moment, in their moment of your life. So, okay, running through. Just words. Caring about what people think of you is useless. Most people don't even know what they think of themselves. Whoa! Yes, this is so true. Again, many books have changed my life, okay? And the 4 Agreements, 100%. Read that one and you will know what I mean. But I realize we are all just in our own dream worlds, and the way I think you're thinking about me is just not relevant, and I don't care anymore. That's the other thing. The surrender was not this beautiful moment of grace. It was more like, I'm going to surrender and F everybody else. I don't care what you think. I don't care what if you're looking at me. I don't care what you judging me. Like, I don't care. Like, my focus is my recovery and getting my fam back, which I did get my kids back. In a notable amount of time, too. But, like, let me tell you, I really manifested that hardcore, finding myself. Okay. I love this one. Okay, I do remember this one. There's a guy looking at something, his face of disgust, and it says, "Me, when I watch TikTok videos of people I know." Okay? I gotta add a side note to that. Me, when I watch TikTok videos, period, okay? It doesn't even have to be, I think it's more just, like, embarrassment of some of the ones that I've seen. Actually, no, there's a few. Mike Rez, he's got funny ones, and my daughter has some, but some of them my daughter has had, I'm like, I don't know, maybe we should get an opinion from your dad on this one. But she knows we're watching, and so I just can't stand. That's one of the social medias I won't say never, but that is definitely never on my agenda list. I think Mike Rez calls it like the toilet bowl, or maybe that's Twitter. I don't even know. The only ones I know is Facebook, now Instagram. Getting more in tune with that one, and what's the other one? That's about it. YouTube. I don't know. I'm just not with it. Okay, next one. Sorry, only 3 more left. Some people refuse to celebrate you because you have grown beyond yeah, that's right. I remember this one. Have grown beyond the limits they gave you. Woo woo, shout out. Okay? So this one definitely speaks for itself. But I love that. Just some people won't celebrate you because they didn't want you to become, great. And I would say better than them, but I feel like if anybody's hating on you, it's because there's something within you that you're doing or you're saying or you're being that 100% within them, they want to be too, or they feel like they're not. There's some insecurity there. So, yeah, that's a good ding boundary time. Okay? Okay. Ooh, I love the artwork with this one. It's purple and swirls and stones. I guess it's irrelevant. It's a quote by Nikola Tesla, and it says, "When you understand every opinion is a vision loaded with personal history, you will start to understand that all judgment is a confession." Oh, yes. Again, beautiful things here. Okay, I only got a couple minutes, but what that says to me is, again, 4 agreements. Whatever anyone says to you, no matter what, it is not about you. In AA, there's called they're pointing with the AA finger. Shout out to Aaron. He told me what that was because I never heard that. So when you point, like if you do right now, you're pointing your finger. You got 3 fingers pointing back at you. So when I'm pointing right now, my 3 fingers are pointed back at me. That's called the AA finger pointing. And that is true. So anytime anyone's pointing out anyone else, especially, now I feel like I got to point this out, especially recovery journeys and recovery paths. When you're so worried about what other people are choosing to do for their recovery, why are you doing that? What are you doing? What's going on with your recovery? Why are you worried about how people are finding their recovery? Does it concern you? No. And if it does, that's a good moment to reflect on, why am I bothered by this? And for me, when I'm bothered by something, I'm like, what's inside me that's unhealed or getting riled up? Why does this person or this thing that was said or this, opinion or why do I feel a certain way about it? What's going on within me? It's self-reflection. Okay, last one. Oh yeah, this is beautiful. It says, "Some days she's a warrior. Some days she's a broken mess. Most days she's a bit of both. But every day she's there. Standing, fighting, trying." Woo woo. Sorry, I don't mean to be the woohoo person. That's so beautiful. And that's the point. You show up. You're doing the best that I could do. Like, I'm doing the best I can do. That's good enough. And when my inner mean girl starts talking shit to me, I calm her ass down and I say, you know what? I'm doing the best that I can do, and that's good enough. Not even I'm enough. I just know I'm doing the best I can do, and that's good enough. And then she sits her ass back down and she quiets down. So, all right, everybody, go into the comments. That is it. That's a wrap. It says, Facebook user said, yes, LOL. Okay, and that was it. 8:54. So, hopefully, it said some can't post comments to some destinations. So, I hope it's just because you guys are quiet and it's Sunday evening. You want to go to bed. As I get older, I like trying to go to bed earlier and starting those Mondays. But thank you for joining me. Oh, hi, Mike. Thanks, Bridge. Hi, Mike. Shout out. Everyone, meet the co-host. He's been going through the steps with me, women's way and the men's way, men versus women. But yes, thank you guys for joining me. I fear I might have been a little emotional, but that's good, right? That's good. I'm just being honest and real with it. And again, I'm sitting in a room talking to myself, reading some words. It's not the same. But next week, definitely plan to have a guest or a co-host. I cannot think clearly. Actually, it's a blur. My mind is mush right now. But again, I love you guys. Have a great night. Have a great week. And if you think of anything, please feel free to comment. And I do read all of them. And I have shared links. So hopefully you got a good message. All right. Love you. Good night. Bye. Oof. Breathe. super secret side note, if you're still listening, I forgot. I was going to share a message, which is, why don't we hold hands anymore? Okay? So I'm putting it out there. I'll definitely talk about it on a future podcast. But remember when we used to hold hands either before and or after the meeting? Let's do that, okay? Because that's another thing, Beth. Shout out Empty on the Inside said it was that meeting, that moment when everybody started to hold hands. She was in the back, and somebody made a point to look back and grab her hand and hold her hand. And that was the moment she felt a part of the group. So let's bring back holding the hands, all right? Everybody can sanitize their hands, wash your hands, or whatever. But I feel like if you are a hand holder, let's do that, okay, everybody? And don't forget, the newcomer is the most important person. So especially if you see that newcomer, go hold their hand. All right, love you. Bye.